Russia has yet again unleashed a record attack on Ukraine by launching more than 700 drones, which is the most fired in a single night in the 3-year war, per official reports.
Officials say Russia fired 550 drones last Friday and 477 less than a week before that. Both of these attacks were the largest at the time.
President Trump is not holding back, expressing his own frustrations with Vladimir Putin. Here he is yesterday.
I've been sort of letting people know I'm not happy about what's going on. It's a war that should have never happened. It should not happen now. They're losing. Now it's up. I've been saying 5,000. Now it's up to 7,000. Think of it, 7,000 people a week on both sides.
As a result, Trump has greenlit sending more weapons to Ukraine, a clear change of tune. Here's Trump yesterday speaking on sending Ukraine more Patriot missiles, which are a defensive interceptor. Take a look.
They would like it. They've asked for it. They're very rare indeed, because a lot of systems have been sent to Ukraine. But they would like to. I know they made the request. We're going to have to take a look at it. Very expensive system.
The Pentagon had paused weapon shipments to Ukraine before Trump eventually reversed his decision. CNN, citing 5 sources familiar, is reporting that Defense Secretary Hegseth did not tell the White House about the pause, which caused confusion. Senator Richard Blumenthal wrote on X, quote, "Time for Hegseth to go." Reportedly, he stopped Ukraine military aid without consulting the president, a rogue and reprehensible breach of responsibility. Add to it a series of national security breaches.
And Senator Rand Paul, meanwhile, complained on X, writing, "When are we going to stop sending military aid to Ukraine? This is a conflict we have no business being involved in." New sanctions bill supported by Blumenthal and Senator Lindsey Graham would impose 500% tariffs on countries that import Russian energy. Speaker Mike Johnson seemed to be on board with that, and he says there is interest in the House to pass that measure. So I understand Trump's frustration very much with Putin. Trump came into office wanting to make a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. That's very difficult to achieve because of the dreadful state that Ukraine is in as its country is being invaded. You know what? If Putin doesn't want to play ball, is not going to engage in negotiations, and Trump says, okay, then we're going to get back involved again in the Ukrainian defense, that seems like a worthwhile negotiating tactic from my standpoint. I know what Trump ultimately wants is to not be involved in the conflict. Why are you smiling?
I just can't. I wish I had pearls on
What?
to clutch them.
Why?
You literally said there's no point in Ukraine moving forward. You and I have talked about this. You said they can't win this war, so our solution is to keep funding them for the war that you believe they can't win. I've always said that we should have stood firm in our support of Ukraine because Putin was not going to come to the table and negotiate with President Trump. I mean, they had, 3 phone calls now since the beginning of the year that all were very, Trump was very confident about, came forward and said that they're making progress. And every time Putin has played in the United States' face and basically made it like a mockery and continued to not only bomb Ukraine, but like barrage them with missiles and drones almost a day or two after speaking to our own president. So I think it sends a message.
Yeah, Trump's sick of it.
That's what I'm saying. But I think from the beginning, Putin has made no concessions at all and never said he would. And the fact that the U.S. not only has criticized Ukraine endlessly, but come to the table and basically said Ukraine should agree to many of the suggestions that Russia's asking for, now puts, I think, Ukraine in an even weaker position, especially with the flip-flopping, because they can't make a strategy if they don't have a strong strategy to stick to and know who's going to support them. And know, predictability does matter in war.
They can't make a winning strategy regardless because they can't win. No one thinks they can win. Our military advisors don't think they can win, and their military advisors don't think they can win. So nothing has fundamentally changed. So the idea that we should not be involved in this conflict, per what Rand Paul says, I think is still a strong one. Now, we're trying to mitigate loss of life on both sides, and we're trying to get this to a resolution. And so I still think it behooves Ukraine to agree to terms that are, while unfavorable to Ukraine, are better than having the entire country conquered by Russia. It sounds like Ukraine is largely on board with that, so good, that side's taken care of. But Vladimir Putin, if he's not on board with that, well, then he's going to have to win the whole country by force. If that's really what he's prepared to do, that's what he's prepared to do. We should then, I think Trump's thinking is, well, then we're going to make it more difficult for you. We're not going to stop you. We can't stop you. He's still going to win this war, but we're going to make it more difficult. If Russia is prepared to conquer all of Ukraine and pay any cost to do it, Well, they're going to succeed. There's unfortunately, I wish that was not the case, but no one has put forth a plan to stop that. So the idea is, can we make it hurt for them a little bit more to the point where they say, you know what, all right, let's negotiate, let's take that deal that's really good for us, rather than lose thousands of more people to take the entire country by force. That's what Trump is hoping, and that's not a bad negotiating tactic to my mind.
I'm happy that he's continuing to help fund, the people that were the victims in the situation. I think it just should have been done much earlier. This decision was pretty obvious to people that have watched this.
It's not because Ukraine can win. It's because we want to bring Russia
back
to the table.
My stance never was that they can win. My stance is that they can create a friction and a standstill that not only, global food supplies are affected by this war. It's not like NATO's involved in this war. Everyone around the country, European Union is involved in this war. People have interest in not allowing Russia to just have carte blanche over Ukraine because it pushes them in uncomfortable territory closer to some of our allies. So the point is to create more of a friction and put on sanctions on Russia and make it harder for them to just move forward so that they do want to come to the table and say, okay, maybe agreeing to everything on their list is not feasible for Ukraine or for the U.S. or people who have interest in seeing them not take over Ukraine in full, but maybe there are things that they can come to the table and agree on. But the minute that I think that we started to waver in our support of Ukraine and now come back to it is the minute that Putin's like, well, if I keep going, eventually U.S. will get exhausted from this.
We didn't waver in our support. We wavered in our strategy because the strategy Biden had was not good.
But
the previous administration's strategy was, we'll give them whatever they want for as long as they want, which said to Russia, okay, then we're going to have an actual war until we win. There was no plan to have Ukraine win. It was impossible. We're not committing ground troops. We're not actually declaring war on Russia. We're not sending U.S. forces. We're just giving them stuff. At some point, they were going to run out of people on the ground who could even use the weapons we were giving them. I mean, we have hit that point. They've exhausted to some degree their supply of able-bodied young men, usually within military age. I'm sure you've seen the footage of, older men being dragged from their homes to go fight in this war in Ukraine. I don't know. I don't like the sight of that. That's not particularly liberal anyway. I know they're in a crisis. And then it's like, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? This is a regional conflict.
Giving them an opportunity to protect themselves. So some of the missiles that the U.S. has to offer specifically can help deter from some of the worst type of bombs that Russia has and can implement on Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So I think without our support, they fail miserably.
What happens when they have all this stuff? Russia wins the conflict, conquers the country, and then all of the weapons we provided them are now just in the hands of Russia. An experience we've had with terrorist groups in the Middle East time and time again. ISIS uses gear that was left behind by us when we pulled out of various schemes we shouldn't have been involved in the first place.
I mean, I just want to know what's the excuse for, the greatest negotiator. I mean, President Trump came to the table and said even if he was exaggerating, this would be ended in days. And the fact that this is going back to let's comb through the history and say that how much Biden is impacting this.
Well, he had a bad hand. You don't have the you don't have the cards. You don't have the cards. That's true.
Ukraine and Russia have been going back and forth since before Biden. So it wasn't a bad hand. This is a history of Russia and Ukraine, right, over a decade. This has nothing to do directly with just Biden or directly with Trump or even Obama. I mean, that's when they got kicked out of the G8, right? So I think that you have to remember this has been going on and on. The reason they got kicked out of the G8 is because some of their stances on what they wanted to do in Ukraine. And we were like, listen, this is not appropriate for people that are part of this organization. So I think we have to remember the history here and not try to put it all on Biden like he just started this idea of protecting Ukraine against one of the biggest adversaries that the U.S. has.
Happy to put it all on Biden more than Obama, personally. It would be my thinking. Up next on Rising, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles is speaking out about President Trump's fallout with Elon Musk. Really interesting interview. Stay tuned.